Who wants a pot of coffee? I just made coffee. You want a cup of coffee? Sure, there you go. Who wants coffee? Anybody else want coffee? Who wants coffee?
And now it's time for the man with the caffeine, the new tropics for the brain. It's Coffee with Mike. Hang in, hang tight, grab your cup, and let's get this thing started.
Everybody, welcome back to Java Chat. Coffee with Mike here, sitting here with Shane Torress. He's got an interesting story to share with us. Shane, thanks for coming on the Java Chat today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Your background is mainly real estate?
I like to say in construction as a whole, but real estate. So construction, real estate development, that's usually some form or fashion. That's what I'm doing.
Cool. So let's everybody knows how our format works. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yep.
How'd you get interested in this? Where'd you start? How did all that happen to bring you forward to doing what you do today?
Yeah, it's quite a stretch of stuff. So I'll try to.
I have a full cup, so we have time. Let's go for it.
I wanted to, when I was in high school, I wanted to get into. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, and then I researched what it took to be an engineer and realized I suck at science and math. And so, and then, I was like, okay, well, I'll be a draftsman. You don't have to do that much to be a draftsman. Well, my first week of being a draftsman, I realized there's still lots of science and math. So I got spooked and went into construction and building trades, learned absolutely nothing because the guy that taught it, at the school there was teaching 1970s practices. So even when I got done, I had to start all over again when I got into
Oh no. Okay.
So then I got into construction, primarily framing, worked my way up. I started as a laborer packing studs, and then, worked my way up to project manager, and eventually became the supervisor for the whole company.
Nice.
Well, the guy that I was working with got himself into a little bit of pickle financially with a few things. And back then I didn't really have any money, but I had a credit, and people, all you needed was a pulse to, get credit. So basically I went and absorbed his company. So at the age of like 24, I absorbed his his home building company, or framing company, but we started a home building company, and, things were going good. And like most, thought things would never end like that. And like the day did, and 2009 hit, and I just made the difficult decision to shut down my home building company. And it was very hard, very huge blow to my ego and pride. And for about 2 months after that, I thought, I would, what I would say, I was clinically depressed.
Yeah.
If looking back now.
Yeah.
And then, I was applying for jobs everywhere, and nothing was coming to fruition. And I'd already taken all my real estate courses, except for, I had one test left to take. I was going to go work for my aunt and uncle. They own a very large directional drilling company. I was going to be a truck driver for them, but I was going to be gone 9 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what I needed to do. But right before I left, my wife was just like, you can't be gone 9 months. I don't care if we lose the house. I don't care, So I'm like, now what? Well, I had to borrow money from, first I had to borrow money when I shut down my home building company to file bankruptcy for my aunt, because I had nothing. But then I had to borrow money from my father-in-law to finish my tests and to pay all the upfront fees and stuff to get into real estate. And I did, and I knew I only had one shot to pass this test. And so I flipped up how I studied, because, I'm not a good test taker or a good student. And then I ended up, for getting started in real estate is not easy. I'm sure anyone who's starting in business in general is not easy, but so I did real estate, and for the, first year, I also worked for a friend part-time doing construction just to make ends meet and be able to feed my kids.
Was that during the early 2000s, or when was that?
No, this was 2010. 2009
Wow.
to 10.
This was when things were everywhere was just barely building back. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just getting started back, and I
Gotcha,
did, I had to do some things that I vowed that I'd never have to do. I had to go get on some food assistance for a while to feed my family,
Yeah.
which I grew up with that crap, so I didn't want to do it again, but it's what I had to do. And then flash forward to early 2010, some things clicked a little bit, and this real estate just blew up. I was able to quit the construction, and flash forward to 2012, and how I ended up with the name of my consulting company and everything, Road to 20 Million. I went from bankruptcy and foreclosure to doing 21 million in real estate production in less than 3 years, and opened my first office.
And that's as a real estate agent, or is that as
That was
an agent?
I was as an agent. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Dude, that's huge. And that was a great time to come back. 11 was when the market started rebounding, and 12 was a good year from what I remember.
It was in some areas, but what I ended up doing is short sales were still pretty big, and I focused on those when a lot of people ran away from them. And at one point, I controlled 25% of the market as in short sales at any given time.
So you just super niched into that for that round,
yep,
so to speak.
Exactly. Well, that's a good way to word it. Round. As the market I saw the market start to shift. I adjusted it to what's coming next, and so forth and so forth. And flash forward to this year, I still manage a large team as well as I'm a brokerage owner, and my team's going to have a record year. Last year was already a record year, and it'll be another record year.
In the midst of a pandemic, it was a record.
Right.
Year. That's huge.
It was crazy. We're in Iowa, and whether people agree or disagree, we're very blessed in the fact that our governor said that our businesses and most businesses in the housing sector were deemed essential. That's so awesome. We never missed a beat.
That's awesome. Have a lot of love for Iowa. We've our marketing agency worked with one of the small batch distillers out there in Carroll.
In Carroll?
Yeah, Iowa Legendary Rye.
Yeah, I'm a bourbon and whiskey fan, so
you'll need to try them. They're this is gonna sound like a plug, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. They are small batch. They still make their recipe just like Grandma, who came up with the recipe back in the 30s.
Nice.
They still use pot stills. They still use 15-gallon barrels. It's a 5th generation bootlegger that went legit that's making this juice. So it's smooth, easy drinking. It's great stuff. If you like it, go get a bottle, or if anything, I'll send you one. It's like, Whiskey Rich is probably one of the coolest dudes you will ever meet. And his 2 boys that are running things are awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, honestly, right before we started this, I was reorganizing my collection in my office.
All right, that's it. You're getting a bottle. That's all good. So in the midst, and most people don't think about this. Iowa is kind of a rural state. It's kind of a flyover state, if I remember correctly. One of them.
Well, that in some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. I mean, that is what a lot of people think about it. But so we're very much so we're in the Des Moines metro area.
Oh yeah, Des Moines, definitely metro. Yeah, absolutely.
What Iowa's become well known for recently is a lot of tech and startups. So we are the Silicon Valley of the Midwest. So we have a lot of incubators that have started here. We now have Facebook hubs, Google hubs, Microsoft hubs. Amazon's just built 2 massive distribution centers.
Sweet.
Right down the road. So, and yes, there are still aspects of it that are flyover, but our 2 top industries are finance and insurance.
Wow. Okay. So for those that don't know, this is the 2nd state that I've heard that's become a center like this. The other one was West Arkansas, and that was back in the early 2000s. So now they're starting to pick up in your state. That's amazing. And that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay. So back to what your journey is about.
Yep. Fast
forward to today, you're running a brokerage. You're running a development company. Am I correct?
So I have real estate brokerage, which is Remax Concepts. We are one of the largest in the state and nation. We have 300 plus agents and 14 offices statewide. With that,
Remax used to be known as the, if I memory serves, Remax used to be known as the biggest volume producer of home sales in the country. At
one point it was. Nowadays, there are others that are bigger because they have more agents.
Yeah.
We still have the most productive. If you look at stats, our Remax agents on average sell 18 and a half to 20 units a year, when the next person's, 10, 8,
Yeah.
6, and it goes down from there.
Yeah.
And that's still the case.
That's
so,
good.
So with that, we have a settlement company, an insurance company, property management. I run my real estate team as under the umbrella. So I don't produce anymore. I just manage.
Yeah.
I do have a few different development companies. I've started getting into commercial development for fun. That's my fun stuff. Honestly, it's all fun, but that's my fun stuff.
This is something you don't hear very often. I do commercial for fun.
So anyway, I have some different holding companies that own other, investments in businesses. So altogether, I'm involved in about 20 different entities.
That's amazing. That is awesome. And you have a consulting company. I heard you say that too. So
yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, Road to 20 Million is the consulting company, and it's a unique thing because I did, when I first started it, I was looking at it from a monetization standpoint.
Sure.
And last year, I just had this epiphany, if you will, that what I have to say, what I have to help guide and teach people right now shouldn't be charged for. So I just you know what, I'm doing it all for free. So that was an announcement I made last summer. So I still have it there, but it's all for free. So.
Have you ever heard of a book called The Go-Giver?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, you basically are that. Great book, short read.
I'll have to get it.
Yeah. It's probably one of the better short reads I've ever been through. Only because it epitomizes putting out the good vibes, putting out the good or karma vibes, whatever you want to call it, but giving back before even receiving. And in the midst of giving, you end up getting amazing stuff. So look at you, 20 plus entities and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
After having gone through the downside of things, and this is not uncommon. And I'm glad you shared this because a lot of our listeners may be going through this right now. At some point in time, most entrepreneurs have hit that bottom where they've had to ask for a little extra help. We all have, same. But the resilience factor kicks in, and the drive to take care. We're providers. I have a son. He has his own job, but I he and I both together, we provide. You have a family, and that's, as that side of life, the provider is driven to go and do whatever it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened.
Yeah. And from that, we're able to spin up a lot of different stuff, depending on our capacity.
Well, and it's crazy. And I think what those that are listening should understand is this time frame has not been that long. I've only been in real estate 12 years. So I went from
to the 30 and 20 somethings. That's a freaking eternity. Remember those days when we were that young? We'd sat there and go, God, is this ever gonna fucking change?
Yeah. So I went from being bankrupt and in foreclosure to an owner of this company in less than 7 years.
That's way fast. That's way fast.
And I actually have a really good analogy of what can happen in life in doing this. So when that first year when I was doing real estate and working for my friend construction, the last job I did for him was putting this deck around this historic mansion. Whoops, accidentally hung up on someone. No, or answered someone. This historic mansion. And then that seventh year, we bought that mansion and turned it into an office.
Oh, that's
so I still own the office. We still own it. So
is that a managed property, or is that one of your actual offices?
It's one of our actual offices. We bought it and turned it into a real estate office. It's right across the street from the governor's mansion. So
really,
yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Nothing says, "Hey, I'm here." Like just buy a house across the street from the Govy and just saying, "Hey,
Yeah, it's a pretty cool building. So
I would say so. I'm gonna have to go look that one up. I'm sure the
Yep.
photos are pretty cool.
Yep.
Most people think that, especially when we were younger, 2 years is so long.
Yeah,
And
it
yet
goes
when
by
you're,
fast.
oh, look at, dude, last week was January.
Right.
I mean, this is once you get into business and become an entrepreneur, time just has this tendency to just run.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to one of an excerpt from one of Elon Musk's accounts of him and his brother starting PayPal, and the fact that in the daytime he was at school, at night he was coding,
Mm-hmm.
just to get that whole thing done. It's like every waking hour was spent working on the business when I wasn't in school.
Right.
Now, he's an anomaly. Let's all be clear about that.
Right.
He is very brilliant. He is a savant of sorts, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But his work ethic and his intent were clear. I'm fairly sure you experienced the same thing, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
And some of that and how that worked out, just the results are proven. When you were at that point, clinical depression, and we'll get more into this in the next section, but when you were at that point, what was the one thing that really, was it just family that drove you, or was there something else gnawing at you, or what was the main?
It was mainly my family. I knew that they needed me. I knew I needed to provide for them. I knew, that if I didn't, no one else would. And so basically it really took, there were a couple key moments that helped me snap out of it, but one in particular. I was laying in bed one night, and I used to say when I was in my 20s that I wanted to be worth $1 million by the time I was 30.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, 30. But then I lost it. So I asked her one night, I said, did you, if you have a goal and you obtained it, but then you lose it, did it count? And she said, well, what did you lose that mattered? And so I really thought about that night. I didn't go to sleep, and I got up. I hadn't worked. I was an athlete in high school, but in the 20s, I was always too busy. So I hadn't worked out in about 10 years. So I got out of bed that morning. I sold the Bowflex I had, bought a gym membership, year membership, and just started working out again. And within, a couple of weeks, I was at that point, I was at my highest weight. I was unhealthy. I was probably 270, and I dropped down to 230 very quickly. So it gave me a sense of purpose. So what I ended up doing was basically getting into the mindset, and what a couple of different ways, is that I was going to do my very best to save my house, do my very best to get out of this bankruptcy, and be able to start over. And if I failed, at least I know I tried.
Yeah.
I became stronger. I am very involved in our church. I became stronger in having faith. It may sound weird because I had no money, but we decided together we tithe more, and it just, everything fell into place, by just not worrying about things you can't control. So in her quote, or in her saying, what did you lose that mattered? Yeah, I lost houses, I lost cars, what I thought were friends, but I was still somewhat healthy. My family was healthy, and that's what would matter. So that was kind of what flipped it, and what had me start over and go down the path that we're on now.
I want to frame something real quick. You mentioned tithing. For people of faith that understand that, that's something that really should sit in the back of your mind. For those that are not, giving is how do I say this? It's giving out and putting out that proper intent. This, the love and light people, they say, give back to the universe, and the universe will give back to you, or put out your intention to give back to you. Part of putting that out there is giving to others. Right. And whether you're donating to a nonprofit or tithing or what have you, I mean, in my case, it's tithing as well. But there are other places where you can place tithes that will help other people.
Mhm.
There are the nonprofits that help locally and then regionally and of course nationally. Putting out there is just as well. Starting your own nonprofit and raising funds to help other people who can't help themselves, or just need a little extra help. Sometimes it's just a leg up nonprofit. Awesome.
Right.
Sometimes it's a full out, how do we help you care for you?
Right.
Whatever that may be, when you put out that kind of intention and that kind of energy, the universe appreciates it and says, all right, cool, you get it. You know what's going on. Now it's time to help you back. And stuff starts, like you said, things just start falling into place and you just go, what?
Well, right. Well, and I would add to that, it doesn't always have to be money. It could be time.
No, yeah, it can be anything.
Given of your time.
Yeah.
That actually, you made me think of something. We actually have our own nonprofit as well. That does do that. Yeah, it is.
Awesome.
Full board. They just did 200 baskets for Thanksgiving for families. And December
awesome.
is their biggest month coming up. So
that's awesome.
You made me think about that. So
that's it. And it's not just that you get back. It's the feeling that you get from giving, whether that's time, finance, or even just a little bit of advice sometimes, like what you're doing for free in some cases. It's like, somebody out there is going, geez, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Right.
Or in some cases, you don't get to thank you. That's fine. Left hand doesn't know what the right hand.
I don't always need to thank you. I don't know. Thank you. Most people don't know what I even do.
It's what you feel in your heart and your own gratitude, the fact that you got to do that.
Right.
And that puts out to the universe, if you will.
Yeah.
And it sees it and it knows it. Because it's one of those deals where it's like, oh, that's cool. We've all done it. We've paid for meals. We've helped somebody out and they didn't know.
Right.
And we were actually it's a weird kind of backwards feeling. Oh, they don't know I did that. That's cool. Let me get out of here.
It is. I know. I do it all the time. I give away so much money. I give away so much money. People don't even know who it's from. So
yeah, to me, it's probably one of the biggest kicks I can get when I can do something for somebody and they don't know it. Like without saying what it was, my son and I were eating, and there were a couple of other people in the place, and I looked over and I went, and I called the waitress over. I said, when they're done, you take care of this for them. And she was blown away. And I'm like, no, don't say anything. Don't even tell them who it is. Just take care of it. And my son looks at me and he goes, that was all I needed.
Mm-hmm.
That validated the whole thing.
Right.
It didn't matter at that point. Anything else, I didn't want to thank you from anybody, not her, not them, nothing. My son's nod was all I needed. And these are the things that we as fathers, we have to lead our children to be this way.
Right.
And that there's more to life than just taking. And this is part of why we do what we do,
Right. Absolutely.
Cool. Guys, we're going to take a 30-second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that drive Shane to get done what he gets done. All right, we'll be back in 30 seconds. And we're back here at Java Chat, hanging out with Shane Torress, and we were talking about his journey earlier in the first section. Anytime somebody goes through the crazy challenges that they go through, there are signposts along the way. There are incidents or activities, things that happen to us or happen around us or happen for us, depending on your perspective. And surely you've had a ton of them. I mean, you spoke about one when it came, by the way, your wife is extremely wise when she threw that question at you. When you said that, I was like, ooh, that was good.
Oh, she's had a few of them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting when you have a partner that is able to immediately help you reflect on something where you just sit there and go, shit, I never thought of that. Right. So what are some of the things that like, as you were going through the process, what are some of the things besides that, that helped you gain perspective or realize that your goal and your dream never left, really?
Right. Yeah. So what, stepping back a little bit. So what I realized after losing everything the way I did, and starting to work my way back up is my priorities before were out of whack. My motto back then used to be without work, there's nothing else. That's wrong, right? So I realized that I had my priorities out of whack. And so the next thing that was kind of an aha moment for me was my wife was gone and I had taken my kids to the park. My daughter was 5 and my son was 3, and it hit me that I'd never taken them to the park before. So I vowed at that moment to not miss anything else again, and I haven't unless I've been out of town. So that was another defining moment of me knowing that my priorities were out of whack. So then, and the next one, and this is to the point where I started getting more success. I was working a lot. I would make, we're making money. It was still just me at the time. I would pop in for kids events and I would leave. Well, my wife and I were having a disagreement one night, and because, again, I'm making good money, I'm like, I don't understand the problem. And I said, I don't understand what your problem is. I'm at all the kid events. And she said, yeah, but what about me? That made me realize, that made me realize I needed to start putting stuff into place, knowing I can't be everywhere at all times. So I started flipping on how I got very intentional on my calendar. I got very intentional on time blocking, and I got very intentional on how I prioritize my calendar. And I look at it in 3 different categories. I have my what I call me time first. So that could be going to the gym. That could be with my wife. That could be with my kids. That could be friends. That's all first and foremost. Nothing else comes before that. And then I fill it in with business building activities. That can be a variety of things. That could be what we're doing right now, right? And the third one is then I fill it in with appointments, clients, agents, partners, things like that. That's third and last. And once I figured that out, I was then I got to the point where I could predict my revenue. So those were a lot of the few key moments I mean, obviously there's been so many, I probably couldn't even recount them all, but those are the ones that stick out the most. And then this wasn't even that long ago. This was like 6 years ago. My wife and I were in Boston, and we were sitting on the water looking out over the Bay Area, and I look over and she's just crying. And I'm like, whoa, what is going on? She's like, we've been here for 2 days and you've barely talked to me. You've been on the phone the whole time. So we all still fall off track sometimes. So I was able to come back in, and even now, I've learned so much in the last year. The pandemic, being locked up with, for so long and not being able to do anything, I've been able to learn more about communication and talking to my wife and just talking to people in general. I mean, I would have never, if you would have asked me a year ago if I would have ever read the 5 Love Languages book, I would have said no. But I've read it, and it helped out a lot, So all these things help lead to, the aha moments that help me continue to drive and regroup and come up with systems and processes to run the businesses. So nowadays, I rarely work weekends. I'm home every night, and it's not that the stuff's not working. It's that I run the systems that manage the people, and I can do that in a short period of time. Now, I will say, we talked about this before we jumped online. I get up at 4 a.m. every morning, but that's what allows me to be home at night. Now, if I were to have to not get up till 7 or 8, I wouldn't be able to be at home at night. So it's time balance is not a thing, but life balance can be if you sacrifice the time.
That you hit like 3 or 4 huge points. Prioritization, as far as what's first, what's second, what's third, reminded me of a talk that Stephen Covey did. Actually, I think both him and it was a professor that actually did this one, and it was the analogy of how to fill a jar. And he threw in some large rocks and said, "Is it full?" You remember this? You probably
Oh
seen it.
yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, and then fills it with water at the end.
Yeah, and it's like when your life's priorities are out of whack, you're trying to fill everything that's water or small pebbles before you get the big rocks in there, and you're not figuring out which is the big rock. So when you can't fit it all in there, it doesn't work.
Right.
That was one. There's a number of different things that you touched on. That the coolest part is when you have the awareness of the time blocking. Like my time blocks are up on the wall, and actually I have to adjust it. I just looked at it and realized there's
mine's on the screen right to the left of
the
screen that we're on. So.
And I have a screen on the right. I should probably start using that instead. The understanding where your time is, where it's absolutely available, where it's not. Like at night, thankfully I work from home. So, if my son's here, he's here. He'll walk out. I get to say hi. We get to talk. We go out and we do our thing. He's the only family I have now, which is, unless somebody else decides to step in, which will be interesting. Communication, the whole, most people don't realize that the 5 love languages isn't just for couples, it's for individuals as well.
Oh yeah.
If you don't understand how you are as far as your own love languages, how can you love yourself?
Right.
To the point that you can take care of you and understand, what time blocking will work for you. Otherwise, you're using a template and it may not fit. In fact, I'm almost willing to bet it probably doesn't.
Right.
And to be able to, the whole leaders or readers and all that stuff, every cliche that you can think of, guys. But the mere fact that you have taken the time to read that and it's improved your communication skills at home, I bet it also has really improved your skills with your own employees and with your own teams.
I think so. And I've done disc tests for years, which also helps me communicate with them. So absolutely.
I'm interested in thinking now, just on the business side of that. Are you helping some of them in the same ways that you've done that? Are you using that in any of your training, or is that any of that? Because you got to know, when somebody comes into real estate, most times they have no clue as what's coming.
Right. Are you saying like from like the communication standpoint?
Communication and training, both.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we always, we talk about all the time being able to adjust and communicate with different personalities. And yes, that absolutely helps with those things. And we always talk about that.
Cool. And then see, like with us, when we do interns, we bring them in and we have we have two sides to our internships. One's for professional development, which is, learning the business, understanding marketing and things of that nature. The other side is personal development, which I'm fairly sure, if I remember correctly, Remax already has something like that. And then of course, I'm sure you have other things to build on top of it that help.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, real estate's a unique thing because you talked about business and personal development. Real estate's not just like a business, it's a lifestyle. So they intertwine a lot, the personal and the business. So when I train, like, and I know we'll probably touch on it here in a little bit, but, to the point, what drives me today, my goal from 2012 until today has been to help people get a good revenue, but yet a life to enjoy it. That's been my motto. And so I think they very much intertwine. If you're not in the right, mindset, and you're not in the right space health-wise, your business is going to suffer. So that, to me, that's first and foremost, is that from that standpoint. So it very much intertwines.
It's kind of funny. I do know of me and one of my business partners, we laugh about this all the time, because we see the guys out there going, get your revenue in, 4 or 5 figures in monthly, and then go sell the business and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, and we've seen some of their programs, and it's like, dude, all you're doing is telling them how to make money. You're teaching them how to sell. You're not teaching them how to build a business.
Right.
You're teaching them how to flip stuff, and it's not helping. It's not really helping them. Yeah, it's giving them a lifestyle, but they could be a recluse and you have no idea.
Right. And that's usually the case. I've discovered, especially it's been magnified in 2020, the amount of like stress and personal problems that people are hiding. And I've even over the last, 6 months, I've been 2020 was not like, it was very challenging for my marriage in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And I had so many friends that were on the outside, they were, it was looking like everything was perfect, but I could see the signs because I was going through it as well. So I sat them all down probably in August. And I'm like, here's the thing. We all share in many ways, but right now we're all being fake in this regard. So I'm gonna tell you what we've been going through. And I just laid it on out there. And I think everyone was in aha moment, because I even had one guy that was like, we look at, everyone thinks, yeah, you got the businesses and you got the house and you got a car and you got this and you got that, and then everything's great. That was not the case. And so it really showed, I've always said I have no secrets. So except for this was the one that I did have. I don't have any now. I've been extremely vulnerable with it. And that's been super helpful to us and to them, to know that they have people that they can confide in, and they're not the only ones.
I think for the most part, a lot of young entrepreneurs, whether they're making a lot of money or not, they have this common thread. Is this all that there is? Yeah, I'm living a great life. I'm out having a good time, et cetera, et cetera. Have a hot girlfriend or not, who gives a shit? But am I really fulfilled? And they're still looking, and they forget that if their focus is only on the income, they're, even the nomadic kids, and I've got a couple kids that are friends that are the digital nomad types, and they claim they're doing okay. Some of them are lonely, even with a partner.
Right. Absolutely.
And if they're not honest with themselves, that loneliness isn't going to go away. You can have the best looking partner in the world and still be alone. You can have the greatest business producing the greatest income and just be absolutely miserable. You know who talks about that a lot? Gary Vee.
Yeah.
I got friends that they got many money, but they're miserable. I'm like, yeah, money doesn't buy happiness. It buys you a lot of shit that can make you happy, but that also just kind of goes away after a while.
Yeah. And that's kind of the conversation I had with myself in 2012. I'm like, okay, there's got to be more than this. And so that's when I set out to become a broker and an owner and help people. And again, do that, attain the good living, but a life to enjoy.
Being a broker, I think some people might misunderstand too, that being a broker isn't about making a lot of money.
No, not at all. I should have stayed. I should have stayed an agent if it was about the money.
Exactly. How is it said? The fulfillment of being a broker.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people misconstrue. Being a broker doesn't mean you make a lot of cash. It means you make a lot of people.
Yeah.
You make a lot of other people happy.
It means you have lots of drama every day.
You have lots of drama. Exactly. We have a couple of friends here that are brokers, and some of the stories they share with me, I'm like, why do you do this?
I've got some stuff I have to deal with later today.
It's not unusual.
There's a lot of stuff you're like, I had one of my staff earlier tell me it's like Jerry Springer episode around here.
Oh no. It does happen. It is what it is.
Yep.
What would you say was the biggest guiding light for you, as far as besides family? What would you say was the biggest one that kept you in focus?
Just what I just said about, being able to help people have a good revenue and the life to enjoy it. I always say I'm a wealth of what not to do.
Aren't we all?
Because of what I went through. So seeing the agents and the business people, and because I don't just mentor just agents, I mentor builders and stuff like that. Seeing them succeed is just awesome.
What's one of the best aha moments you've had from that? Not you personally, but them. Like when you see a shift, because that's when people like us are like, yes. What's one of the best ones you've got?
We have one gentleman. He's a hustler. He's been a hustler since day one, and year two he's hustling and he's having that that fight, that I was just talking about with the wife, because he's gone and he's not but he's making money and she's not understanding. He's like, and she understands, she doesn't care about the money.
Yeah.
But he's like, she doesn't understand. She just doesn't understand. I'm like, oh, she understands. Trust me. Well, a year later, he had a kid and the light flipped.
Oh boy.
And he's like, you know what? I had this goal this year, but I just had my kid and I don't need the goal this year. I'm going to stay where I was last year and I'm going to be a dad. And then I'll go, next year. And he did it. He did what he said he was going to do. And he jumped to that next level the following year. So I meet with him regularly. I just met with him a few weeks ago. And it's this progression that I was talking about that I did. I'm seeing him pick up on his own, like what's next. So yeah, that was probably be one of the biggest ones.
Oh,
I had another one. There's a reality. There's a lot of dark side to real estate. There's a lot of abuse as far as alcoholism and drugs, and there's a lot of infidelity and and the other thing, there's a lot of no one ever teaches them how to do a business, right? They just teach them how to sell, so they don't talk about taxes and stuff like that. And one person that I met with quite a few years ago was like $300,000 in debt and taxes, and she worked her butt off. She paid it all off. It was all paid off by last year. I mean, she didn't give up. She just worked her butt off. And to see that click for her, and it's even cool, in the fact that she's been in real estate twice as long as me. So the fact that I could give that advice because I went through it, seeing those things click, that's what's fun for me.
That's awesome. That's cool. We're going to take another quick 30-second break. When we come back, we're going to chat more with, and we're back. Final section for Shane Torress here, Java Chat. We've been talking about a whole bunch of different things as far as motivation, stories, and innovation, inspiration. And he's got like 20 different entities that he works with. It's crazy. That's a lot. And I'm sure there's a few that are a focus, like as of right now. What do you got going on?
Oh man, well, so like I said, they're the core, if you will. My real estate team is always a priority, and making sure that they're working well together and growing. And like I said, we'll have a record year this year. They'll do about 55 million in production. Being that my day-to-day is more in managing the company, the companies and concepts, we've got some exciting stuff, some I can't talk about yet, but we'll be able to announce it soon. That'll take us to a whole nother level as far as the brokerage goes. So we do have a couple of things with that I'm working on that I can talk about in little detail, but I think we can all agree that COVID kind of changed the dynamic of how some things work.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, a little bit to an extent, is the way that the real estate offices have operated. And it's kind of naturally progressed this way. We've been doing it for years, but we've always, the last few years, we've been doing these, like what I call cafe style offices, meaning you have a few private ones, but then you have open areas with some tables and chairs and booths, like a Starbucks or whatever. Well, as we go forward, I think it's changing even more. So we're in a few different markets. So what we're going to end up doing is, in our markets, we have our main hub, which is our biggest office that'll be staffed. We have our smaller offices. They're going to be branch offices. They won't be staffed, but the newer ones that we're doing are going to be dual purpose, meaning the one is going to be a coffee shop open to the public with a real estate office inside of it.
That is interesting.
And an agent brought that idea to me. She's like, we spend most of our days in coffee shops. What if this was a coffee shop? I'm like, genius. I love it. Then, and all this has happened from a necessity and kind of rolls into what I'll talk about for the next one. But, I wanted an office in a certain location. So how do you do it? Well, we're going to dual purpose it. Now, the next one is going even to another level. There's nothing like this in the state of Iowa, but they do have a couple down in Scottsdale. It will be a brewery / restaurant / real estate office / event center, all in one building. They will be able to be separated with glass walls and whatever, but you could open them up into one big space. There's nothing like that. And so that in the state of Iowa, which then, you know, that rolls me into my next one, which is my development company. So my development company started out of, I wanted an office in a certain location. There was nothing there. I couldn't come to terms with the building owners around me. So I'm like, well, let's build my own. And I've got knowledge from my construction background and my home building background. Well, that, you know, it parlayed into even bigger building, right? And I built that one. I didn't know how, as far as to structure it. It was, you know, $3.5 million building. We needed, you know, $800,000 in cash. I personally could not do $800,000 in cash without causing a lot of problems. So how do you structure that, right? So I figured that out. And then I decided, because the market was so crazy, that I would throw a crazy price on it and see if I could sell it. And if I would, or if I could, I would sell it. After it was full, I fully leased it. We, as in my Remax, like, leases half the building. That was the goal. I'd sell it. Well, I did. And I took it, I sold it. And now I've got, you know, up to $19 million in projects for 2022 that we're looking at doing. And again, yes, I will have to have partners on that. Yes, I'll have to have investors on that. I did not know how to do it in the beginning. I've been fortunate to, you know, have good people along the way that have helped teach me what I needed to know. I'm not, you know, and that's the thing. Everyone thinks it's so hard to get started. You just have to make a decision to get started. And I actually got this from Grant Cardone. You know, I commit to something and I'll figure it out later. You know,
Yeah.
One of his things, he said his first deal ever, he committed to buy a $3.5 million building. And he had no money. And he had to get it in 90 days. So he did. You know, I have another one. I'm going to be getting into land development. Never done it before to the scale we're going to do it. It's 44 acres.
Yeah, that's going to be a big project.
Yeah, it's a big project. And I'll figure it out along the way and use the experts that do it. And then the final one, actually too, is I'm building a daycare.
Cool. Nice.
And I will own and operate. I will own, but I will not operate the daycare.
I was about to say, own and operate. Oof.
No. I will own, but I will not operate. But that started as a joke with a city official in a neighboring town. And here we are in the middle of our design phase. I have the land under contract, and we will probably open in fall of 2022. But it started as a joke. And the thing is that I tell people, I never set out to be here. I never set out to do any of this. I set out to get out of foreclosure, and I set out to be able to take care of my family.
Yeah.
Everything that we have to this point that we continue to add, opportunities presented itself. I looked at it. If it made sense, we did it. If it didn't, we don't. And then the final one is my wife's project. So we live in this community. We don't have a lot of historic buildings. We live in a small suburb outside of Des Moines. We have only a few old buildings left. She's wanted to do two things: be able to help revitalize the buildings in the community and bring something to the community that's drastically needed. And that's something for the teens.
Okay.
It's not that they're like on the street corners or anything, but they don't got it. There's nowhere to go for them. So we bought an old church building, and we're currently remodeling it and turning it into a game lounge, but not a video game lounge, a game where they actually have to set the phone down and use their hands.
Nice.
So like air hockey, foosball, ping pong, pool, things like that. So it'll have that. It'll have a little event space in the basement that looks like a kitchen of a house. So it's more homey. When we were younger, her grandma's house wasn't big enough, so we always rented out the rec center there. It was stale, it was cold, impersonal. Yeah. This will look like a house. So we're in the middle of remodeling that. That'll be her baby, and she'll run that here. Hopefully, we'll get that open next year as well.
If you've got a link for a website for that, would love that. So we can go ahead and put that down in the comments below. If somebody wanted to connect with you, where can they find you? Like, are you on LinkedIn and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm on all those sites. So LinkedIn, Facebook, road to 20million.com. You can find me personally on Facebook or Road to 20 Million. I'm pretty accessible.
Awesome. And of course, we'll put all of those links as well below. You've gotten to where you're at. You've done all this great stuff. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Oh man, just teenagers. Now, honestly, yeah, just the kids, it was very eye-opening to me a few weeks ago. And this is just in all seriousness. The teens with social media are under so much pressure and their image and stuff like that. And we were at this church event and the youth pastor did a questionnaire, and it was an anonymous thing. What is something God should worry about you? And 14 out of the 15 comments were about saying about my anxiety, about my depression. Mm-hmm. These are 15 to 18-year-olds. Mm-hmm. There only one did not say anxiety and depression, which means that, so 2 of those would have been mine. So yeah, dealing with the teenagers, my daughter's getting ready to graduate. She's doing pretty well. She's got a pretty level head. She's got her anxiety somewhat under control. My middle son, he doesn't like to talk. So it's hard to know what he's going through.
Yep.
That's really difficult because there's days where he just has this aura where he's just cold-hearted, but I know there's more to it.
Oh, sure.
So that, honestly, that's not even, that's what the struggle is. That's not anything to do with business or anything like that. That would be my biggest struggle, is my kids, and trying to balance making sure they can be successful in the world, but know that these problems are real.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to relate to them.
Well, yeah, they're,
because I'm not wired that way.
None of us are. Neither of us. I have a 20-year-old son who's just starting to communicate with me more than he used to. Like when he was in his teens, he would talk to his mom like it was nothing. Me, I'm okay. You don't sound okay. Your schoolwork doesn't seem like you're okay.
Yeah. My son doesn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Well, so actually he'll talk to his sister, so I am thankful for that.
Yeah, at least he's got a sibling to share with. He has started warming up a lot more, and that's been in my mind, it's been a blessing for me too, so I can see where he's at.
Right.
It does take time for the teens to come around. It's one of the reasons that I like talking to teens and asking them, how are you feeling right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they look at me and they go, I'm fine. I'm like, that's not what I asked.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the same thing like when we're talking to people that we're mentoring or coaching.
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now? Oh, I'm okay. That's not what I asked.
Right.
My own business partners, I ask them every once in a while, how are you? I'm okay. That's not what I asked. And all of a sudden they get nervous because it's like, oh, he's being, we have to. I mean, it's in their best interest for us to say, here's your safe place, not safe space. Here's your safe place.
Right.
If you gotta download. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to do anything more than create a space for you to just let loose. Go for it. I mean, this makes sense. I even learned that with him. It's like when he finishes work some days, I can tell when it's been a good day and when it's not. And when it's not, I'm like, how'd it go?
Right.
Oh, it could have been better. Yeah. What's that mean? Then it comes out.
Right.
It's the joy of being a pop.
True.
Cool. Guys, for those of you, again, you guys heard it earlier, all the links and everything to follow Shane and connect with him and make sure that you're following. I'll need the name of your brokerage as well, because I'd like to put that in there as well so people can find you, because there may be some people in Iowa that may want to connect. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell next to it. This was an excellent interview. Thank you very much for sharing your story. You've shared the reality of how being an entrepreneur really is. And we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. If you guys are listening to us on Anchor, that's our home plate, if you will. That syndicates out to about 10 other platforms, 10 or 11. I can't remember how many. Download, subscribe. If you wouldn't mind, write us a review. We love having reviews. And of course, when yours comes out, I'll ask you to do the same. Biggest one though, you got to know somebody who would benefit from this. Send them the link. Whether it's Spotify or Anchor or YouTube, just shoot them the link and say, hey, you need to hear this. This is pretty cool shit. This guy was like at the bottom and now he's soaring. And it's not because he did it himself. It's because he did it with others and he that kind of thing. Share it, get it out there so others can benefit. That's why we do this, is so that you can learn and grow and do whatever you need to continue your journey as a professional, as an entrepreneur, or whatever it is that you're doing. We thank all of you for making the time and taking the time to come and listen, come and watch, and we hope you continue to do so. So stay up, stay safe, stay healthy, and live. For myself, Coffee with Mike. For Shane Torress, ciao for now. It's a long ass fucking sign off. I gotta figure out how to shorten that out.
It was good.
Sincerely, thank you very much. I really appreciate you making the time and hanging out and sharing your story. I have a design to introduce you to directly to Iowa Legendary Rye because of the brewery concept.
Okay.
And the reason is because they're looking for places to set up stills.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I've got multiple things that I've been thinking about. So
yeah. they actually are setting one up in Texas.
Okay.
That one's going to have its own brand, even though it's their stills that are going to be doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they're looking for other places. What I'll do is I'll make an introduction between you and the grandson of the booth.
Okay.
And the two of you can chat. I think he just bought a building in Carroll.
Okay.
Either it's in Carroll or it's on Templeton. No, it's in Templeton on Main Street, just down the road from Templeton Rye.
Yeah, so I'm actually part of a private barrel club I'm having a barrel made at, it's called the distillery in West Des Moines. The guy who owns that was one of the original founders of Templeton Rye.
So this, you're gonna get a kick out of this. Templeton Rye is not Templeton Rye.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting how few know this.
Yeah.
That they're an Indiana recipe and they're not really an Iowa recipe. So this is one of the 12 families. If you've ever read the book Gentlemen Bootleggers.
I have not, but I know of it.
Okay, so that actually talks about 11 families. Well, there was a 12th one. The feds never got to them. This is that family.
Okay.
And this is one of the 12 recipes, and they're still trying to figure out, because bootleggers don't tell them.
Right.
They're still trying to figure out where grandma's stuff was being sold.
Right.
Because it wasn't hers that was being shipped out to St. Louis and Chicago. That was the bootlegger that was releasing their land, but she was still making her own juice. So they think it was sold locally and regionally. Amazing stuff. I'm not an alky. I don't drink a shit ton.
I don't either. I just collect it.
Yeah, I'll have, like last night, I think I had my first dram. God, it's been almost like 3 months.
It's about what I do.
Big drinker. I smoke cigars like it's going out of style, but listen, I'll let you get going. This should be out. I'm trying to double up everything to try to get all of these out before the end of the year.
That's
However, if I can't get it out before Christmas, it'll start coming out in January.
That's fine.
Once they're published, I send you the links, and that way you can promote it how you want. If there's anything that you need as far as other projects that you have coming, or if you want to come back and talk again more about other stuff, let's schedule it. I'd be happy to have you. This was a good
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year.
You too.
Thanks, brother.
For more information on Java Chat, visit www.javachatpodcast.com. You've been listening to Coffee with Mike on Java Chat. Tune in weekly to this podcast for the next episode. You can also download or subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. A production of Oasis Media Group, LLC. Located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved.